I tell my children all the time, look where you live. And they're like, oh, because for them it's just normal, but it's so different to my upbringing. So I want them to appreciate what they have on their doorstep.
Welcome to Island Influencers, where we share stories of successful business owners, experienced professionals, entrepreneurs and community leaders based or with influence in the Isle of Man. This podcast is brought to you by Thornton Chartered Financial Planners, because great financial planning has the power to change your life. Now here's your host, Chartered Financial Planner Sharon Sutton.
Episode 4 this week, I'm going to interview Rebecca George Becks, who's the Chief Executive Officer of the Isle of Man Chamber of Commerce, on our Island Influencers podcast. Becks is a born and bred Londoner, and after a year of travelling the world with her Manx-born husband, they decided that going back to London life wasn't for them. Lucky for us. By then, she'd visited the island on a few occasions and had already fallen in love with the place, its beauty and pace of life. So it didn't take much persuading for her to come and live here. So they came for 6 months, assuming that it wouldn't suit them, and they'd rush back to the city life in a heartbeat. But here they are, 15 years on. Her husband runs a successful international shipping company in the Isle of Man, yet another of our niches. And by her own admission, Becks has had amazing roles and opportunities which have led her to where she is now. She doesn't know if she'd had such a good quality of life if they'd stayed in London, but they do know that they don't spend hours of their day sat on trains or in traffic. They've got a house by the beach, their careers have flourished, and their children can safely walk to school. And how many people living in the UK can say that? So let's listen to what Rebecca has to tell us as an Isle of Man influencer. I'd like to welcome you to the Island Influencers podcast, Becks.
Thank you, Sharon.
And I'm really excited to meet you here and have a conversation with you, because I'm a big fan of what you've been doing lately for Chamber and really putting it on the map. And we see events, they just come into my inbox all the time. You seem to be very, very proactive, and it's great.
Yeah.
So well done for the great job that you're doing in putting the Isle of Man on the map.
Thank you.
I'm curious to know more about you and also what it takes to run a successful organisation. And I'm sure there's lessons that our listeners can take away and apply to their own organisations and businesses. So if it's all right with you, I'd like to kick off our conversation and go back in time.
Yeah, of course.
And just ask you all about your life here on the island and how did you end up coming here?
Well, very typical of a lot of people you may meet on the Isle of Man. I'm not actually from here, as you may have guessed from my accent.
Yes.
Which I forget I have. And then somebody will say, you're not from around here, are you? And I'm like, oh, I forgot I had an accent. I am from North London, not particularly nice area. That's where I was born and bred. And my husband, my now husband, was working and living in London when we met. So to cut a long story short, we had a whirlwind romance and then he went travelling for a year and I joined him. When we came back from travelling, neither of us wanted to go back to that sort of daily humdrum of travelling into London. I worked in the city in St Paul's for City and Guilds, the awarding body, and I'd been doing that for quite a long time. So I just got to that stage where I needed a change of pace, and we were lucky enough that my husband had brought me here a few times for some long weekends, and I'd fallen in love with the place immediately. So we had the opportunity to come here for my husband to help his father with his business. So
he was from here?
He's from here originally, yeah. He left when he was sort of 18 when he went to university and sort of said, I'm never coming back to the Isle of Man.
It's a familiar story.
He had a very different viewpoint of the island than I did. I looked at it through different eyes. And I think a lot of people take where they're from for granted. He fully appreciates it now, but as a teenager, perhaps not so much. So we said, we'll come for 6 months, and we never left.
Oh, wow.
And I fell in love with the place. So, yeah, that's how I ended up here.
Fantastic. Lovely. It's a lovely story. When you came and you worked for the City of Guilds, did that sort of experience was that useful in getting to work for Chamber?
Yeah, well, interestingly enough, I actually worked for the Chamber of Commerce when I first came to the island. So that was about 16 years ago. I used to run the exhibitions for City and Guilds all over the UK, promoting the qualifications and programmes that City and Guilds did. So I was used to travelling to Birmingham, NEC, places like Excel, setting up exhibitions and running those. And I really enjoyed it. So that was my background. It was sort of organisation of events and marketing. So when I came to the island, the Chamber of Commerce were advertising for somebody to help them grow their membership and look after their events. So I went for that job. I temped for about 6 weeks. And ironically, I didn't actually get a work permit granted for me.
Oh my goodness. That is irony indeed.
Yeah, this is a topic that comes up often at the Chamber now.
I'm sure.
The then Chief Executive, Barbara O'Hanlon, actually went to the appeal committee for me and said, we truly believe that this lady can offer the skills we require. And more importantly, I had the fit for the team. So she
Barbara would have been lovely to work with.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, Barbara and I are still very close. She's a family friend now,
Yes.
so she's seen my girls grow up, and she's been a great support. So I got the job finally. I was actually poached away from Chamber a couple of years later to go into learning and development with Hamblin Recruitment, and again that was sort of a passion of mine, teaching adults. I had a couple of qualifications in that, so I was really keen to kind of develop that side. So I did that for a long time. I was with Hamblin for a very long time until in between maternity leave and having children. After my second daughter, I wanted to get back into the workplace, but I couldn't commit to full-time hours. I started to think, well, perhaps I could set up on my own. So I set up myself as a consultant and just went back to the various places that I'd done work for before and said, can I assist in any way? So I still did some work for Hamblin. I ended up doing some work for the creameries, supporting the MD. And I approached the Chamber. And I thought, well, I used to work there. I wonder if they've got anything. And Jane Deller was chief executive at the time. She said, my crikey, what amazing timing. I'm about to put an advert in the paper for some support for the committees. And I said, well, I actually used to do that. So she said, fine, right, you've got the job. Easy.
Yeah.
And this goes back to what I always think about the island. It's such a lovely, close-knit community, both in the business community and the wider community. And a lot of it's about who you know and your connections. I think if you can forge good connections and relationships with people, that is more important than anything on this island. So I went back to Chamber. And it was really interesting. I started off just doing a few hours a week. And then as my younger daughter started school, I had more time. And so that was a transition period of the then chief executive leaving to me taking over, doing more hours, taking on more responsibility. And here we are, 5 years later.
Yeah. How long have you been chief exec now?
Chief exec for 2 years.
Yes.
CEO for a couple of years prior to that, and then I did a few, the part-time before that. So, it's just sort of escalated.
Yes. Yes, it has.
I think I could be honest and say I wasn't brave enough to take the chief executive role, back when the then chief exec left. I didn't have enough confidence in my abilities. But the board was so supportive and they saw it in me. So they said, look, that's fine. Let's just see how you get on. And they sort of nudged me, I think. And my confidence grew and grew. And and here we are.
That's great to have so many supportive people behind you and recognise actually the talent that they have.
Absolutely,
and to nurture that. That's fabulous.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations, because it's all down to you.
Well,
at the end of the day, it's even that you've given you the confidence, but it's still you.
I don't, I'm a bit, I think I'm not very good at,
See, I'm not very good at, you are very good at, you are very good at.
I've got a strong team around me. We're a very small chamber. I'm very lucky to have Julie, who's been there from the start.
Yes.
In fact, I knew Julie when I originally worked there 16 years ago. She's still with us, and she's had to deal with a lot of change through the years through chamber, and I would say probably since I came in, there's been the most change.
Yes.
Because I'm a very open person. I'm very honest, and I just want to help everybody. Ultimately, what Chamber of Commerce is about is the members. That's it. And I always go back to that. Is this good for the members? Is this of value to our members? If it is, then I will do it as much as I can. That's it. That's the core ethos that runs through Chamber for me.
Sure. Okay.
We are here for the business community. We are here to support and help the economy grow and thrive. And as I mentioned, we're very small. We have very limited resource, but we do what we can.
Yeah.
I'd love to do more, but
So, I guess. I was going to get to that later, but maybe unpacking a bit of that. How would you appeal to new members and to existing members even? How do people get the most out of Chamber? I take it it's not just turning up with a bunch of business cards and saying, "Here, give me."
Absolutely. No, and I'm glad you've asked that because I think when I joined Chamber, we'd come to renewing memberships and members would leave. And I'd say, why? I need to understand why, so that I can make things better. And they would say, we just don't get enough from the membership. And I'd say, well, can I be honest with you? You've not engaged with Chamber. You don't really come to the events. You don't take advantage of what Chamber can give you. And that is what I would say. The members that engage with us get the most out of it. It's definitely a two-way relationship. Larger chambers in the UK have dedicated business development managers that can go out and visit their members on a weekly basis. Unfortunately, we don't have the resource to do that, but what we do have is a small business community and the opportunity. Members are always welcome to come and see us and pop in, make meetings, come to our events, but also approach us about ideas that they have. I'm always willing to listen to ideas. And again, it goes back to, if we think it's of value to the other members and the business community, we're always willing to have a look at that opportunity. So for me, Chamber membership is a two-way thing. Engage with us as much as you can and you will get more from your membership.
That's great. That's great to know. Thank you. So my particular background is in it's people business, but I just happen to work with money. I mean, what's your earliest memory of money? I mean, how was it growing up?
Growing up for me, single parent family, very strong role model in my mother. She was a headmistress. Now I realise, now that I'm a mother myself, how hard it must have been for her. She would have to leave for work and leave my brother and I to, get on with it. That's just what you did in the 80s, And we had a great childhood, but my mother was very private. She wouldn't talk to me about money, not at all. But now that I have conversations with her, I realise how tight things were. But I never felt, hard done by or anything. I remember when I started my first proper job in London and getting my first wages. And I still remember it now. I can picture where I was stood at Liverpool Street Station. I went to the cash machine and I put my card in and the money was there, and it really wasn't very much. But to me, it was loads of money. I didn't have dependents. I don't think I was even paying my mum rent. So, it was all mine and I felt so proud of myself. So, I think I grew up in a home where we didn't talk about money. It just wasn't the done thing. I think I'm a bit more open with my children about it to a certain extent. They need to understand they can't have everything. Everything costs money and, hopefully they do understand that.
That's great. Thank you. So of all the things you've done throughout your life so far, what things are you, what things have given you the most fulfillment? What are you most proud of?
I was thinking about this and it still comes back to where I am now. And I know I'm here to talk about where I am now, but this opportunity I have at Chamber has been a real privilege for me. I'm a true believer in things happen for a reason. I met my husband. I came to the Isle of Man for a reason. I feel honoured to live here and privileged. And the opportunity that I've been given at Chamber has been wonderful. It's opened so many avenues in respect of how many people I know and how many people I've met in the business community. My husband always jokes that I'm more Manx than he is. I know so much about the island and the business community, and I meet so many wonderful people, and equally that crosses over into government as well. And I feel very privileged to be in that position where I can make a difference, and I hope that I do make a difference in the role that I'm in.
I can tell you do.
So thank you. So here and now, for me, I try and reflect as much as I can and appreciate what I have, because I think a lot of us spend a lot of time complaining.
It's easier to be negative.
And actually, I'm very lucky. Very lucky. I have a very supportive board. I'm in a job that I managed to do this job and look after my children. Not many places would allow that. The flexibility I have in the role allows me to have the best of both worlds, which I'm really, really lucky to have.
And what do you do to relax when you're not running the Chamber and running after two daughters? And
relax. I'm not sure when I have the time to do that. Being at home with my kids is a joy most of the time. We love the great outdoors. This is why we live here, and this is why we love it so much. We've got a camper van, so we'll go out in that, and we haven't even taken it off the island because we don't need to. We can just go up to Ramsey for the day and day and night, or go down to the beaches. It's all about the outdoors for us. We live in Castletown, which I absolutely adore. and we have a beach on our doorstep, we have a castle on our doorstep, you know, which is a bit crazy. I tell my children all the time, look where you live. And they're like, oh, you know, because for them it's just normal, but it's so different to my upbringing. So I want them to appreciate what they have on their doorstep.
So, I mean, you're covering the best things about the Isle of Man. If you were to create some sort of marketing campaign, you know, what are the best things about living in the Isle of Man? Quality
of life.
Yeah.
I truly believe that the quality of life here is so good in comparison to many other places. You know, everybody has a fairly short commute to work. You know you're not going to hit traffic. You know, you leave at a certain time, you're going to get there pretty much, unless you get stuck behind a tractor, you know. And the fact that you can finish work and jump in your car and within 5-10 minutes be next to a beach if you choose, I think is so valuable for well-being and peace of mind. You know, when I get in my car and drive home, I look at the scenery around me and it just calms you, you know, the fresh air, the whole ethos of the island I just think it has a lovely pace and a wonderful quality of life. My children are safe, they walk to school. My mother always says, I can't believe you let them walk to school. And I'm like, of course I do. It's the Isle
safe,
of Man,
isn't it?
Mum.
Yeah.
It's, you know.
And when you're a mum, I mean, what better advertisement for the Isle of Man than...
Yeah. Off you go, kids. You know, they scoot to school, they knock for their friends all along the way. And, you know, for me, it's amazing that they can do that. The island has certain USPs that are obvious if you look out the window. It's not going to appeal to everybody. If you want the bright lights of the city with the big department stores and theatres, but, you know, you could jump on a plane and be there if you go to Liverpool in 20 minutes. You know, so I think it certainly has an appeal to young families, people who want to bring up children in a safe environment. It has every advantage: good schools, beaches, safe environment. So, yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I can tell.
I'll never leave.
So what do you think the main challenges then, on the flip side, that the Isle of Man does face?
I think, am I allowed to mention the B word? For the Isle of Man, Brexit is a constant changing landscape, and we will continue to work with the UK and be guided by what the UK are doing. But I actually, on the flip of that, see that things like Brexit could be a great opportunity for the island. And I do know, you know, and I've been working closely with Cabinet Office and Department for Enterprise in their plans, and they are looking for those opportunities. And I think business should be doing that as well. Let's always turn these things on their head. This is happening now. Let's deal with it. Another very big challenge for the island is skills. And it has been for a good few years now. Not just the island, the UK generally has big issues with skills. Growing our population is important for this island to continue to thrive and grow. There are arguments against growing the population, but for me, from my position, from where I see it, growing the population will ensure that the economy continues to grow and thrive, because then the businesses can grow their skills, their employees. So encouraging people to come and live and work here is very important. Equally, encouraging our young people who go off to university or just go across to work, come back and work here, bring your skills, bring your learning and experience back to the island. There are some amazing career opportunities here, and I think the island needs to do more on showcasing those opportunities, and there is a lot of work going on to do that through Locate. Already have seen some great results in bringing people to the island.
Sure. Okay, we could put some of the things you mentioned into the show notes so people can find links to take their investigations further. But I mean, how do you think the island as infrastructure would cope with a large influx of more population?
We have the infrastructure in place to grow up to 100,000 if we chose. I don't think it needs that much, but from looking at research, the Isle of Man certainly can cope with a growth. But what it needs to do is ensure that these are the right people coming to the island that bring in those skills that we need to help the businesses grow and thrive. You know, I know that government do a lot to look into where those skills gaps are. And the Chamber does a lot to assist in that by asking its members where their skills gaps are.
Yes, I've
obviously,
seen that.
you know, IT, for example, is a very big area. So it's about working with the University College and local businesses in workplace opportunities, apprenticeships, qualifications in those areas, so that young people will either stay on the island and qualify here or come back and work within these organisations through internships and apprenticeships. Because that's one of the best ways to get into the workplace, is to live it and breathe it, and then understand and know whether you're guiding yourself into the right career. You know, try it out. And there are loads of wonderful workplace opportunities for young people here. I think we just need to keep working on.
Sure. So you
that.
Can put some note in the notes. You can put where those things are posted. Yeah. So what would you do if you were, say, a government minister?
What would I do if I was a government minister? Which minister? What am I in charge of?
Everything.
Currently, top priorities: ensuring that the Isle of Man has that right infrastructure in place to encourage growth. The government need to ensure that, yes, they're encouraging people to the island, need to look after the businesses that are here as well, make sure that they are thriving and growing. And ways to do that is through encouraging people to come to the island.
Do you see any particular niches that we should be exploring further, or
well, I mean,
supporting?
There are many emerging sectors that are coming through, you know, things like fintech and esports. And, you know, if the Isle of Man government is going to continue to explore those sectors, we need to make sure we have the skills to fill those. I know that accountancy is a big skills gap area, that campaigns are being released to help life as well. So there's some exciting stuff going on at the moment coming out of the government agency bodies, business, finance, you know, digital. We're starting to see some movement and some great stuff coming out of there. But what I'd like to ensure the listeners understand is that all of these agencies are linked in with Chamber. So we make sure that there's that continual conduit between local business and government. That's the only way they will work, is that the business community has their voice, because they're the ones that know how these things work. And government recognise that, hence the set-up of these agency bodies. So
that's really good. Thank you. For any aspiring business owner or entrepreneur, what would be your number one business tip?
Okay, let me think about this. Network. Get yourself out there, because I've mentioned it before. The strength that the business community has in its relationships is wonderful. And if you're either new to the island or you're setting a business up on the island, get yourself out there. It's such a great place to meet people, and you'll eventually start to see the same people and forge some really good relationships. There's loads of buzz on the island at the moment in terms of business events, loads of things going on. There's always something happening, and get yourself out there and get yourself involved. Forging those strong relationships is absolutely key to be as successful on the island.
That's a really good answer. I can attest myself. I was there last night for an event at the Eagle Lab, which is a great facility, isn't it, in the heart of Douglas. And there was a couple up there, a couple of chaps that had just moved over. They were here a week, and they're already into sessions, amazing, trying to learn stuff.
Yeah,
this was about
brilliant.
WordPress. Thanks to Owen Kujar for running that.
So the lab's a great facility, and actually the Chamber moved into the lab when it opened, so it'll be 2 years in June this year. It's a funny thing, because we were in Athol Street prior to that. You'll know that. You're in a very alternative facility now. Our rental contract was due up, so we were like, okay, well, actually, this is all falling into place. Let's move to the lab. What I didn't realise at the time was that move really influenced how Chamber evolved. So I had all these ideas, and I would have progressed them anyway, but I don't believe they would have been as productive and as successful without the move to the lab. What I wanted to create was an open and inclusive Chamber of Commerce. Being in an office hidden away doesn't give that impression.
Sight, out of mind, yes, indeed.
So now that we have almost a shop window.
You do.
We actually do, yeah. So many people say, oh, I saw you sat at your desk. Yeah. I have to be careful what I'm up to in that office. So, what a difference it's made. It has made us open, and that gives that feel that people can pop in and say hi, which they can. They're more than welcome to. Yeah. So it has made a huge difference and created that community that I wanted to create. Yeah,
I'm glad you mentioned that. It's just so obvious when you are going through Douglas, that you're right there.
Yeah, oh, that's
right in the
great.
heart.
That's what we wanted, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so what have you got planned next?
One very large piece of work I am working on with our president is a manifesto consultation to the members. Mm-hmm. I keep saying this. The members are you're our top priority. That's what we're here for. We're a membership organisation. We want to ask our members, what do they want from the Chamber of Commerce in terms of business plans for the future? How is your business coping? Where are the barriers? Where are the challenges? What do you want your chamber to be lobbying government for? We want to get some hard hitting issues going there. That's where we have real strength. Our relationship with government is great. It's never been better. We've been criticised in the past for being too close to government, and I've always kicked back on that and said, if we don't have a good working relationship with government, we cannot do our job properly. We need to be able to forge that relationship with them, but equally challenge and lobby them where we need to. And we have that. We have that voice and we have that lead in. So that is where we have our real strength. And that's something that will be going out to the members, hopefully very soon, with a long lead time for responses so that we can start to build that really big picture on what we should be focusing on. Another key area is peer mentoring. I want to continue to look at how we build that self-serving ecosystem of support amongst the members. We've grown our startup community hugely in less than a year. We've got 150 startups on our books now, which means that we now have a membership from startup all the way up to very large corporates and everybody in between. So we've got that whole great mix across all sectors. What I want to do now is create that community amongst the members to say, if you need help here, go and talk to them. If you need help here, go and ask these guys for support. We need a platform for that. So that's something I'm working on very hard at the moment.
Great. So we can see details of that shortly.
Hopefully.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay. So are there any sources, any books that you've read recently that you'd like to recommend to listeners or sources of inspiration?
Yeah, actually, it's interesting that you mentioned that because I don't have a lot of time to read, unfortunately. By the time I go to bed, I'm normally falling asleep. One book I did read when we were looking to build our startup community. We host monthly meetups with our startups, and yesterday the topic of books came up.
My word,
and
how coincidental.
What types of books everybody's reading, especially in the startup space, that's helping them to grow and give them the strength they need. And so we're actually going to develop a list that we can share and almost hope to do like a book exchange. So if you've read it, drop it off at the lab and then, people can swap. There are some amazing books out there.
I left one there last night, actually.
Oh, did you? Oh,
yeah.
fab.
No, you
I'll
would
pick it up.
No, you won't. It was WordPress for Dummies 2017. The boys looked at it and said, no.
Leave it there.
Yeah. Put it in the bin.
But no, there are some amazing books out there. And I think actually we need to get better at sharing what everybody's reading. And yeah, as I say, we're actually going to start doing that at Chamber. And
so, what sources do you look at? Do you have any online resources that you look at regularly?
I keep myself quite inward focused. I am constantly reviewing what's going on in government because I need to keep my eye on consultations that are coming out, changes in legislation, policy, so that I can keep the members informed. It's a bit boring, but it needs to be done. Yeah. It's something that, I need to keep a very close eye on. Things that are going on the island, we need to be really in touch with so that we can respond as and when. We have a really great relationship with the Wirral Chamber of Commerce, and we're in the process of building a relationship with Liverpool Chamber of Commerce as well. I do look to them because, almost like my role models, because they're larger chambers. The Wirral is large but not too big. We see a lot of synergies with them, obviously being in the northwest as well. Mm-hmm. And I do look to the sorts of things that they do to see how we can perhaps replicate those ideas here on the island. Okay. So I do like to keep in touch with what they're up to.
So they're pretty good to share good practice.
They're great. They're amazing. They've been really supportive in helping us grow and supporting me personally. and looking at how we can forge relationships that will be advantageous for our members and their members.
Yeah, right. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So where can people go to learn more about you and the Chamber? Just the website,
Chamber
I suppose?
website, yeah.
Okay.
I'm on LinkedIn as well, and the Chamber website has everything. We've got a new website supported by our strategic partner, PDMS, who've been great, always supported Chamber with the website.
Yeah.
So we just launched a fresher website, nice and easy to use. It's got all our news, events, membership directory, and everything you need to know about Chamber. We now have online application as well, so we're very modern now.
Okay,
so
well, we'll put that.
Yeah,
that's great. We'll put that in the show notes. But thank you so much for coming along, Becks.
Thank you for inviting me.
Meeting you today, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Island Influencers from Thornton Chartered Financial Planners. To find out more and for useful links, visit thorntonfs.com/podcasts.